Welcome to an overview of key environmental conventions and protocols that shape global sustainability efforts. Environmental protocols and conventions are international treaties designed to address complex, cross-border environmental challenges. These agreements involve nations committing to common goals and frameworks for environmental protection, ranging from climate change to biodiversity. Global cooperation is crucial because environmental issues like pollution and climate change do not respect national borders. Let's begin by examining some of the most significant environmental conventions that form the foundation of global environmental law. The RAMSAR Convention is an international treaty dedicated to the conservation and sustainable use of wetlands globally. It was officially adopted on the 2nd of February, 1971, in the city of Ramsar, Iran. Significantly, the RAMSAR Convention is recognized as the very first global treaty dedicated specifically to wetland conservation and sustainable utilization. The central goal of the convention is promoting the wise use of wetlands by all member nations. But what exactly does wise use mean in this context? It means ensuring ecological conservation is maintained while still allowing for the sustainable use of wetlands by human communities. Let's define what is classified as a Ramsar wetland under this treaty. The scope is broad, covering both natural and man-made ecosystems that function as wetlands. This includes lakes, rivers, marshes, mangroves, coral reefs, reservoirs, and even rice fields. Member countries are responsible for designating specific areas as official Ramsar sites. These designations are based on criteria such as ecological importance, biodiversity value, and other environmental significance. A key consideration is the site's significance for waterfowl and other aquatic species, recognizing their reliance on these habitats. The convention places significant importance on international cooperation to achieve its goals. This is particularly vital for managing transboundary wetlands and protecting migratory species that cross international borders. The Ramsar Convention is strongly supported by influential non-governmental organizations like the WWF and IUCN, who help drive its conservation efforts. In conclusion, the Ramsar Convention is a vital mechanism for global environmental stewardship. It ensures that these critical ecosystems, essential for biodiversity and human well-being, are preserved for future generations. CITES is a crucial international agreement designed to protect the world's most vulnerable wild animals and plants from overexploitation through trade. CITES stands for the Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species of Wild Fauna and Flora. This foundational convention was adopted in 1973 in Washington, D.C., marking a significant step in global conservation efforts. 2 years later, in 1975, CITES officially came into force, establishing the legal framework for regulating wildlife trade. The primary objective of CITES is simple: to ensure that international trade does not threaten the survival of species in the wild. The convention specifically regulates international commerce involving endangered wild fauna and flora. It ensures that commercial activities do not push vulnerable species closer to extinction. CITES's scope is broad, covering trade in live specimens, animal parts, and plant derivatives. Species under CITES are listed in 3 appendices, dictating the level of trade control needed. Appendix 1 lists species most threatened with extinction, prohibiting international trade except in highly exceptional circumstances. Appendix 2 includes species not currently threatened, but that might become so without trade regulation. Appendix 3 contains species protected in at least one country that needs cooperation from other CITES members to prevent unsustainable exploitation. CITES is a legally binding international agreement demonstrating global commitment to wildlife preservation. It boasts over 180 member countries, highlighting its status as one of the world's largest conservation agreements. Crucially, CITES focuses on regulating trade rather than direct habitat protection, complementing other conservation efforts. CITES is a key convention for controlling global wildlife trafficking and illegal trade, protecting species for future generations. The Bond Convention is an international agreement focused on the conservation of wild animals that migrate across borders. Officially, it's known as the Convention on the Conservation of Migratory Species of Wild Animals, or CMS for short. It was adopted in 1979 and officially came into force in 1983, establishing a global framework for conservation. The primary goal of the CMS is the conservation of migratory species, their habitats, and their essential migration routes. Significantly, the CMS is the only global treaty dedicated exclusively to the conservation of migratory species. It emphasizes protecting species throughout their entire migratory journey, including their habitats across international boundaries. The CMS uses a two-tiered system for protecting migratory animals based on their conservation status. Appendix Y lists endangered migratory species and requires range states to afford them strict protection. Appendix 2 includes species that require or would benefit from international cooperative agreements for their conservation. The convention relies heavily on the cooperation of range states to succeed. Range states are the countries through which migratory species pass during their journeys. The convention ensures these countries work together to establish coordinated conservation and management efforts. The day-to-day operations of the CMS are managed by its dedicated secretariat. The CMS Secretariat is strategically headquartered in Bonn, Germany, reflecting its origins and global reach. The convention operates under the aegis of the United Nations Environment Program, or UNEP, ensuring integration with broader environmental goals. The Vienna Convention, adopted in 1985, is a crucial piece of international legislation. Its primary purpose is to protect the Earth's ozone layer from depletion, safeguarding our planet from harmful UV radiation. The convention was adopted in 1985 and officially entered into force just a few years later in 1988. The Vienna Convention provides a foundational framework for essential international cooperation on environmental issues. Crucially, it offers a framework for action, but does not impose legally binding emission reduction targets on its parties. A key function of the convention is promoting scientific research, systematic observation, and vital information exchange related to ozone depletion. Parties are encouraged to exchange information on potential threats and solutions regarding the ozone layer. This includes sharing data and research on ozone-depleting substances, which is vital for informed policymaking. The convention commits parties to cooperate on technology transfer and policy coordination to effectively address ozone protection. The Vienna Convention is perhaps best known for laying the critical groundwork for a more powerful treaty, the Montreal Protocol. It established the institutional and legal foundation necessary for the Montreal Protocol in 1987, which successfully implemented legally binding reduction targets. In conclusion, the Vienna Convention marks a defining moment for international environmental law and cooperation. Its role was to facilitate cooperation, science, and the political will needed to create effective environmental policy, paving the way for ozone recovery. The Montreal Protocol. The Montreal Protocol was adopted in 1987 and stands as a monumental international effort to safeguard our planet's ozone layer. Before the protocol, the world recognized a severe threat. Human-made chemicals were rapidly depleting the ozone layer, which protects life on Earth from harmful UV radiation. This legally binding agreement was established under the Vienna Convention for the Protection of the Ozone Layer, and it came into full force starting in 1989. The primary, vital objective of the Montreal Protocol is the systematic phase-out of the production and consumption of ozone-depleting substances, or ODS. It's a legally binding commitment for all signatory nations to adhere to strict timelines for reducing and eventually eliminating these harmful chemicals. The protocol specifically targets substances like chlorofluorocarbons, or CFCs, halons, and carbon tetrachloride, all major contributors to ozone depletion. The effectiveness of the protocol lies in its adherence to foundational principles that ensure global participation and fairness. It operates on the principle of common but differentiated responsibilities, acknowledging that countries have varying capacities and contributions to the problem. Crucially, this principle grants developing countries extended timelines to phase out ODS, ensuring they can transition without hindering their economic development. The Montreal Protocol isn't static. It has consistently adapted and strengthened its mandates through various amendments. Significant revisions, such as those in London, Copenhagen, and Beijing, have kept the protocol relevant and effective over the decades. These amendments continuously add more substances to the control list and enforce stricter controls on existing ones to accelerate the recovery of the ozone layer. A major expansion came with the Kigali Amendment in 2016, shifting the focus to an additional group of chemicals. The Kigali Amendment specifically included hydrofluorocarbons, or HFCs, which are potent climate-warming gases, within the scope of the protocol. This amendment committed countries to phase down HFC production and consumption, contributing significantly to global efforts to mitigate climate change. The Montreal Protocol is widely regarded as an exceptional success story in international environmental cooperation. Thanks to the protocol's strict controls, the ozone layer is now showing clear signs of healing, a testament to global commitment. The BASAL Convention is a landmark treaty focused on the control of transboundary movements of hazardous wastes and their disposal. Adopted in 1989 and entering into force in 1992, the Convention quickly established itself as a vital piece of international environmental law. Its primary goal is simple yet critical: to protect human health and the environment from the adverse impacts of hazardous waste. The core of the Convention regulates the cross-border movement of hazardous wastes, ensuring safe handling and transport. By regulating waste movement, the Basel Convention works actively to protect global human health and prevent environmental damage. The Convention wasn't formed in a vacuum. It was a necessary response to a growing global crisis. It was specifically framed in response to the unethical dumping of toxic wastes in developing countries, particularly across Africa. A cornerstone of the Basel Convention is the mandate for prior informed consent, or PIC. PIC mandates that importing countries must formally grant consent before any hazardous waste shipment is allowed to proceed. The Convention covers a broad range of wastes that pose risks to health and the environment. This includes, but is not limited to, industrial hazardous waste, often stemming from manufacturing and chemical processes. It also addresses biomedical waste, which can be infectious, and certain types of household waste when classified as hazardous. Finally, the scope also includes incinerator ash, a common byproduct of waste disposal that can contain heavy metals and toxins. The Basel Convention remains a cornerstone in the fight against uncontrolled global waste trade, shaping responsible environmental practices worldwide. By mandating informed consent and regulating hazardous waste, the Convention ensures a safer, cleaner planet for everyone. The CBD is a landmark agreement addressing biodiversity conservation, sustainable resource use, and fair benefit sharing. It's a foundational treaty for environmental protection. Let's trace the origins of this pivotal convention, starting with its adoption at a major global summit. The CBD was first adopted in 1992 at the landmark Rio Earth Summit, a critical moment for global environmental policy. Following its adoption, the Convention on Biological Diversity officially entered into force the following year, in 1993. The CBD is structured around three key pillars that guide global efforts in biological diversity. The first objective is the conservation of biological diversity, which means protecting all forms of life and their habitats. The second objective focuses on the sustainable use of the components of biological diversity, utilizing resources responsibly. Finally, the third objective emphasizes the fair and equitable sharing of benefits arising from the use of genetic resources. What is the legal power of the CBD, and how widespread is its acceptance? The CBD is a legally binding multilateral treaty, boasting near universal membership, making it one of the most widely adopted international environmental agreements. Despite its wide acceptance, the United States is the only UN member state that has not ratified the Convention on Biological Diversity. The CBD is supported by two vital supplementary agreements, the Cartagena Protocol on Biosafety and the Nagoya Protocol on Access and Benefit Sharing. Ultimately, the CBD's focus is on promoting the conservation of diversity across all levels: ecosystem, species, and genetic. The Convention on Biological Diversity remains a critical international framework for global conservation efforts. Its objectives are vital for a sustainable future for all. The UNFCCC is the foundational treaty that has guided international efforts to address climate change for decades. It's the international environmental treaty established to combat global warming and its resulting climate crisis. Let's look at when and why the UNFCCC was created and its main goal. The UNFCCC was adopted back in 1992 at the Rio Earth Summit, marking a significant commitment to climate action. Its primary objective is to stabilize greenhouse gas concentrations in the atmosphere. The goal of stabilization is to prevent dangerous human interference with the climate system. A key philosophical foundation underpins how the UNFCCC operates among its member nations. The Convention operates on the principle of common but differentiated responsibilities, acknowledging varied capabilities and contributions to climate change. The UNFCCC serves as the umbrella for two of the most significant global climate agreements. Crucially, the UNFCCC provides the legal and procedural framework for the Kyoto Protocol, which set binding emission reduction targets. It also sets the stage for the landmark Paris Agreement, focusing on keeping global temperature rise below 2 degrees Celsius. To understand the UNFCCC's operations, let's look at its administrative structure and its annual guiding sessions. The central administrative body, the UNFCCC Secretariat, is proudly headquartered in Bonn, Germany. The annual Conference of Parties, or COP meetings, are vital in guiding the global response to climate change. These high-level meetings bring together nations to assess progress and negotiate commitments, effectively guiding global climate action. The UNFCCC is the backbone of international climate cooperation. From Rio 1992 to the Paris Agreement, the UNFCCC continues to drive efforts to secure a stable climate for all. The Kyoto Protocol represents a major effort to combat global warming through international cooperation. The Kyoto Protocol was adopted in 1997, falling under the umbrella of the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, or UNFCCC. Although adopted in 1997, it officially entered into force in 2005, marking the start of its binding implementation. The protocol notably imposed legally binding greenhouse gas emission reduction targets on participating nations. These mandatory targets specifically applied to developed nations, known within the agreement as Annex I countries. At the heart of the protocol is the principle of common but differentiated responsibilities, or CBDR. The protocol operationalized this principle, recognizing that all countries share responsibility for climate protection, but their capabilities and contributions to the problem differ. Consequently, developing countries, including nations like India, had no mandatory emission reduction obligations under the protocol. To achieve its goals, the Kyoto Protocol introduced innovative market-based mechanisms. These mechanisms were designed to lower the cost of compliance and encourage international investment in emission reduction projects. The Clean Development Mechanism, or CDM, allowed developed countries to earn emission credits by investing in emission-reducing projects in developing countries. Joint implementation allowed developed countries to trade emission reduction units from projects implemented in other developed countries. Emissions trading allowed countries with emission units to sell them to countries that were over their target, creating a market for carbon. Despite its limitations, the Kyoto Protocol left a profound legacy on global climate policy. It laid the critical foundation for the development of global carbon markets, demonstrating a path toward market-based solutions for environmental challenges. The lessons learned from the Kyoto Protocol directly influenced and paved the way for subsequent global climate agreements, including the Paris Agreement. In conclusion, the Kyoto Protocol was a landmark achievement in international environmental policy. It established legally binding targets and introduced crucial market mechanisms, setting the stage for decades of climate action. The Rotterdam Convention is a multilateral treaty designed to regulate the international trade of specific hazardous chemicals and pesticides. It was adopted in 1998 and officially entered into force in 2004, marking a significant step in global chemical governance. The core objective is to protect human health and the environment from the potential harm posed by these dangerous chemicals. It specifically regulates the international movement and trade of hazardous industrial chemicals and pesticides. The convention applies to substances that have been banned or severely restricted within signatory countries for health or environmental reasons. At the center of the Rotterdam Convention is the Prior Informed Consent, or PIC procedure. PIC ensures that countries receiving these hazardous materials have the necessary information to make an informed decision about their import. Under PIC, importing countries must explicitly approve or refuse the importation of scheduled chemicals before the trade can occur. The convention provides significant benefits beyond just trade regulation, focusing on global safety and knowledge. Its primary goal remains the protection of human health and the environment from the damaging effects of hazardous chemical exposure. The convention strongly promotes the exchange of information regarding the risks and safe handling procedures for these regulated chemicals. The Rotterdam Convention stands as a vital international agreement for transparent and responsible trade in hazardous substances. By implementing the PIC procedure, it ensures that developing countries, in particular, are not unknowingly exposed to dangerous chemicals. It is a global commitment to address mercury pollution comprehensively, ensuring a mercury-free future for generations to come. The Stockholm Convention is an international treaty designed to protect human health and the environment from these dangerous chemicals. It was adopted in 2001 and officially entered into force in 2004, setting the stage for global cooperation. Let's understand what makes persistent organic pollutants so concerning for our planet. POPs are defined by their toxicity, their ability to accumulate in living organisms, and their persistence in the environment. One of the key dangers of POPs is their capacity for long-range environmental transport, meaning they can spread far from their source. The convention operates with a clear objective and guiding principle. The convention's primary aim is to eliminate or restrict the production, use, and release of POPs globally. It applies the precautionary principle, emphasizing that preventative action should be taken even when scientific certainty is not fully established. The core motivation behind the Stockholm Convention is safeguarding the well-being of people and nature. The convention seeks to protect both human health and the environment from the pervasive effects of these pollutants. It pays special attention to vulnerable populations who are often disproportionately affected by POP exposure. What are the commitments required of countries or parties that join the convention? Parties must take action to reduce, restrict, or eliminate the production, use, and release of POPs within their jurisdictions. A key requirement is the development of National Action Plans, or NAPs, to detail how each country will meet its obligations. The Stockholm Convention stands as a testament to global cooperation on environmental protection. Its global impact is significant, working toward a world free from the dangers of persistent organic pollutants. Continued global compliance and vigilance are crucial to achieving the Convention's vision for a healthier planet. The MINAMATA Convention is an international treaty designed to protect human health and the environment from the adverse effects of mercury. This vital convention was adopted in 2013, following years of negotiation, and officially entered into force in 2017. The primary goal of the MINAMATA Convention is simple: to protect human health and the environment from the harmful effects of mercury pollution. Let's look at some of the key control measures, starting with mercury supply and trade. A critical provision of the convention is the immediate ban on new primary mercury mines worldwide. Furthermore, the convention mandates the phasing out of all existing primary mercury mines to reduce the overall global supply of mercury. Next, the convention regulates mercury use in manufactured products and industrial processes. It sets controls and phase-out dates for mercury in various products, such as certain batteries, switches, and fluorescent lamps. The convention also regulates mercury use in key industrial processes, promoting cleaner alternatives. A major focus is addressing mercury use in artisanal small-scale gold mining, commonly known as ASGM. Mercury is often used in ASGM to extract gold, leading to significant mercury releases into the environment. Parties to the convention must develop and implement national action plans to formalize and regulate this sector, shifting towards non-mercury practices. The convention also tackles how we handle mercury emissions and manage mercury waste. Specific control measures are established for air emissions of mercury from major sources, like coal-fired power plants and industrial boilers. This includes regulating the environmentally sound management of mercury waste, ensuring proper disposal and storage. The convention requires parties to identify and manage sites contaminated by mercury, minimizing health and environmental risks.